The Oshobo Sacred Grove in Oshobo, Osun State, southwest Nigeria, is one of the last remnants of primary high forest in southern Nigeria. The site, a natural habitat that has been preserved for over 400 years, has served as both a pilgrim point as well as a tourist center for millions of people who visit the site annually to worship and celebrate the Osun goddess that is believed to inhabit the river that runs through the grove, giving the water the ability to heal and grant wishes of its believers.
Osun Grove happened to be a site that we all refer to as a living site. It is a living site just because activities that have been carried out over the years are still performed the way it used to be then. And secondly, it is a site where the worshippers do come to perform every 5th of the day, which means 5 days. They do come. For example, in churches, we go to churches during the week, but on Sunday, we christen it to be, we go to church on Sunday. Likewise, the Muslim goes to mosque on Friday. So that's why the fact that the devotees do come interval, but they have a 5 day, which they call Ojose. Aside this, the uniqueness of this site is the name Oshobo was derived from this site. The appellation of the king was derived from this site.
From the entrance, one could feel the tranquility that comes with the well-preserved forest. A little further down comes another feeling of an elevated being's dwellings. This is the Oshobo Sacred Grove, one of the last sacred forests in Nigeria, along the banks of the Osun River, just outside the city of Oshobo, Osun State, southwest Nigeria. In this forest of 75 hectares of undisturbed areas of land, no residential building is allowed, no killing of any kind of animal, no fishing, no hunting or felling of trees.
Apart the fact that it is 75 hectares of the core zone and 47 hectares of the buffer zone. It's one of its kind in sub-Saharan Africa and the second UNESCO World Heritage Site in Nigeria. The kind of people or crowd that comes around, one would be marveled why this. But it is a festival and a river that people believes in. Because of the sacredness, you can't cut a tree, you can't fish. And if you are not a devotee, there are certain activities you don't do so that you don't blame yourself.
The one path that cuts right through the grove is lined on either sides with sanctuaries, illustrations of traditional Yoruba deities and primary high forest. Adekunle Olatunji is the curator and site manager of the grove that has existed for over 4 centuries. On a tour of the sacred forest, Olatunji describes how the name Oshobo came about and what the grove stands for.
At Ipoleumu, some kilometers from here is in Iboku. There's an hunter. It's not just an hunter that go into the bush to kill rattle. It's a big hunter that hunts for elephants, bigger animals. In one of his sojourn, then from Ipoleumu looking for where they can get water, they now got to this site. On getting to this site, he was astounded. We were looking for almost a 40 kilometers from here, looking for water, still large water here. So he decided to go back to inform the king. My brother, we are hunting, I got to his place and I saw this river. So the hunter then was Oguntimeyin, while the king then at Ipoleumu is Laroye. So the two of them came down to the site, seeing what they wanted. So they decided to settle down at the bank of the river. So in one of their trying to rent the tent, a tree now fell into the river. And a voice came out of the river saying, you have broken my time, but 84 koku. So everybody the two of them were so shocked. Who is this person? Simultaneously, the spirit now answered, Oshobo Pele, brother. Oshobo Pele. Oshobo. That was when they knew they are in Oshobo. Literally meaning Oshobo. So now, they now felt, what is the next thing to do? In Yoruba then, something strange happened. You do divination. During their divination, they wanted to know what's happening. So the Babalawo now said, Oshun dwell here. You cannot stay with Oshun. So they moved from the bank of the river, moved up. They now built a hut. That hut today is what we call the first palace. And there's these promises between them that if we say we should leave this place, as a powerful person, they felt, how will somebody in the river be telling us to leave? So if we are to leave, what will you do for us? And I said, okay, if you are to leave, I will make you prosper. There is no war that will conquer you. Do my bidding, and every year there must be somebody from your lineage to come and bring object of appeasement to me every year.
But the grove wasn't always this beautiful and serene. In fact, there was a time it was completely infested with termites until an Austrian artist, Susan Wenger, and her husband Uli Bayer arrived to save the sacred monument. Wenger devoted some 50 years of her life to preserving the forest, and with the help of local craftsmen in the city, she transformed the sacred grove into a sculptural garden with compelling artworks and objects of habitation. Because of them, this 200 acres is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
When Mama started with the Oshun Groves, she started at the area we called Ayedakun. Ayedakun is also part of the groves. Our first two sculptures are still there, where we have Obatala and Yemo. And she did that, not in one place, at the main shrine, Ebu Yamako, and inside the forest there are the sculptures there that she made. And Mama would do the art with meditating, like communication with the deity before doing any form of art. And Mama got her inspiration, from there, because she stayed there for a while.
She was invited to come and see or assist us in treating this termite attack. In doing that, she now fell in love with the culture. So she is so powerful and mystic that if she sleeps, revelations of what she is expected to do for this place will come to her. Then she now felt, for somebody of her status, there's a need for her to have people to work with. Then she now got in touch with the Oba. Then there and then some interested indigenes that were into art then were introduced to her. So that was why they formed what we call a new sacred art movement. With this new sacred art movement, from instruction from her, that's why we have all these structures.
Shaded by a canopy of trees with a flight of stone leading downwards, the inner grove lies within a natural depression, marking the exact spot where the first palace of the founder of Oshogo was located. The ancient palace with its ornate pillars and elegant designs has remained in its original state for decades, and its sacredness upheld for as long as it stands. A short walk away from the palace will take you to the Oshun River, which on a normal day looks just like any other river except for the utter stillness that pervades the atmosphere around it and the occasional calving in the midst of its waters. Otherwise called the Herbs of Oshun, because according to its devotees, this calm flowing river transcends ordinary water. Everything about the Osun Grove revolves around this river. It's like the life of this place. You take it away, the entire place becomes lifeless. This is where the history of the Grove actually started from. And every year, thousands of devotees of the Osun Goddess converge by the bank of this river, where they pray, believing that all of their problems will be solved by the goddess.
If it is just a mere river, why the crowd? If it is just a mere river, why are people taking this water? I'm using this water in context because here we don't have river, we don't have water. Please, we don't have water. Once you are here, you want agbo, apps. People that needed one thing or the other comes here to seek for assistance from Osun Goddess. Believing, that's what I said, it's your faith. Believing he or she will do it for them. Whatever is being taken here is apps, is agbo. If you take it with your faith, be you me, you will be healed. It has been proven beyond reasonable doubt.
While the Grove is the site of Osun's most sacred shrine, many Yoruba deities are also depicted here with sculptures that are centuries old and shrines where their devotees worship. Despite the sanctity attached to it, managing the Grove is not without its own challenges.
There's no lumber that will come into this site that will not pray will sleep off 72 hours. So that before we wake up, we would have cut down all the trees. We do have butchers, and despite the native laws that we do use to operate, because here you are not supposed to hunt. If you are caught, you'll be taken to the enforcement agency through the authority of Oshobo. And because of developmental pressure, as the town grows, you are bound to see people wanting to build closer to the site, thereby giving you problem. You have a challenge, but God is helping us through that native law. That native law, don't cut, don't fish. And aside that, the native law, I will tell you authoritatively, because if all of us goes home, we have night security if they are here. If you eventually decide that you want to catch any fish, you will cook it from now till that kid don't come, it will not done. So you will definitely put yourself into trouble.
Once sparkling and clear and home to a variety of fish, today the sacred river is murky and brown. It is now under constant threat from pollution from waste disposal and other human activities. Another fascinating thing about the Grove is the standalone suspended bridge right at the heart of the forest and just above the Osun River, built some 87 years ago. The bridge has no pillar holding it because they say the Osun Goddess forbids it. One of the unique things to see at the Grove is this suspension bridge. We understand it was built in 1935, commissioned in 1936, and the reason why the bridge was constructed was to enable people around here move goods now, especially palm products, from one end of the bridge to the other. And up till this day, the bridge is standing. It's one bridge a lot of tourists who come to this area love to see. Despite the gradual fading away of celebrated African culture and tradition, the Oshobo Sacred Grove is one cultural phenomenon that has not only stood the test of time, but also become a reference point for people from this part of the world. The Grove remains more or less pristine, leaving visitors with this sense of peace and a connection to the dwellings of an elevated being and the ancient Yoruba tradition.
Democracy, they say, is the ultimate positive revolution because it gives every individual the power to change, control, and direct the government without violence. May Niger politics not happen to you in 2023. Welcome to 2023, the year we are told Nigerians are ready to take their country back. From whom, if you ask me, I don't know. I see the rulers are not our fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, relatives, and friends. Anyway, I believe in a slogan shot than our usual way. In 2023, don't be carried away by the razzmatazz of the political parties and their spokespersons. Not be intimidated by the violence of the various political supporters. Stand with your candidate, even if you are standing alone. And don't make unnecessary enemies for yourselves. Because there will always be life after 2023. Don't say I didn't tell you. Don't let Nigerian politics happen to you, because nobody is as inconsistent as the average Nigerian politicians. Remember, people died in Osun years ago supporting Aregbesola against Oyinlola. But when Oyinlola joined APC, the families of those that died were left to mourn their dead. So borrow yourself a brain. Don't die in their fight in 2023. My principal, Festus Keyamo, was a shining example to some of us. Strong critic of anti-democratic forces. But today, my bros is trying to defend everything he once fought against. I know qualms about it. As you know, Niger politics happened to him. My Egbon, Big Egbon, Oshomole, was a strong labor leader who fought against oppressive government forces. But unfortunately today, he's among the government forces oppressing workers with hunger and ASU with no work, no pay. My dear, may Niger politics not happen to you like that. Remember, Godswill Akpabio was in PDP for 19 years, asking party leaders to come take 1 million naira for Mr. Biggs, their common governor. But when he moved to APC in 2018, he suddenly informed us that PDP destroyed the country. You see, once Niger politics happen to you, you lose your senses. I don't even want to talk about Femi Fani-Kayode, as his notoriety for political prostitution has been taken judicial notice of by everybody, including you. Niger politics didn't happen to him. In fact, nothing happened to Niger politics. Tinubu joined AD, became a governor, abandoned them and formed AC, metamorphosed into ACN, and subsequently formed an alliance with strange bedfellows to form APC. Went around the country selling Buhari as a warlord and messiah that will solve the structural, economic, and security deformity of Nigeria. Today, you and I couldn't even go to the village for Christmas because of insecurity. And recently they can kidnap some people from train also. Yet today he's campaigning to build on the achievement of Buhari. I want to ask, which achievement? Banditry, hunger, kidnapping, general insecurity or poverty? I leave you to answer that. That is if Nigerian politics never happened to you. Godwin Obaseki and his deputy Philip Shabu were in APC from inception, only to move into PDP. And today we open their mouth to criticize APC and the people. When Nigeria don't happen to, go they defend and clap for them. Continue. How about Daniel Buala, my learned colleague? Until a few months ago, was a strong supporter of Buhari and APC. And today, he's speaking for PDP and criticizing the APC he was once speaking for just a few days ago. How else can you describe Nigeria politics happening to someone? Dino Melaye was in PDP, moved to APC, campaigned vigorously for Buhari until he jumped from a moving vehicle into PDP, remember? And today, he's unapologetic one of the promoters of PDP candidate Atiku. And you say these are not the principalities, demons, and power. PDP, sorry, of Nigeria politics happening to someone. Anyway, nothing spoiled. This is Nigeria. Atiku was in PDP, moved to ACN, from there back to PDP and to APC, and now PDP. And all the while, rather than fight for restructuring of the country while he was there, he was busy selling and acquiring national assets that haven't worked since then. And today, he's promising you and I to restructure Nigeria and privatize NNPC, maybe to his friends. And you are clapping. You can call it Nigerian brand of politics, but I call it Nigerian politics has happened to you. How about Kenneth Okonkwo, Andy of living in bondage? He once promised us that Buhari was a messiah to lift us out of our bondage when Andy, he was in APC. But today he's in Labour Party making the same promises and owes nobody any apology about his previous promises. And you are praising him because the Labour Party. I don't blame you. The Nigerian politics is happening to you. Peter Obi was a rock in Abga. He left to join PDP under Goodluck Jonathan and didn't teach Jonathan how to turn Nigeria from consumption to production economy. Now he's in labor, and like Buhari, he's promising Nigeria Eldorado. And as Niger politics is happening to you, you dey clap for him and insult people when disagree with you. Anyway, last, all man go chop breakfast when I don't clear. As Buhari and APC promised much more than this in 2015. Obasanjo endorsed Yar'Adua in 2007. In 2011, he endorsed Goodluck Jonathan. 2015, he endorsed Buhari. Then in 2019, he endorsed Atiku. And today, 2023, he has endorsed Peter Obi, as is right anyway. Una the fight on herself over the matter. As if all his previous endorsements don't make Nigeria better. I swear, once Niger politics happen to you, even the devil will envy your misbehavior. Plenty consistent inconsistencies in our politics, and we close our eyes to them as we shout and call on God daily to come do for us that which has empowered us to do for ourselves. I will therefore advocate for as long as we keep allowing Niger brand of politics to happen to all of us, we'll continue to tolerate these types of inconsistent actors in our political systems while doing the same thing from different political platforms, setting and operating under the same set of rules, laws, orientation, and mindset, and expecting something different. Well, even if I reject it for you, have you rejected it for yourself? According to Chief Afe Babalola, no amount of endorsement, political jumpology, consistent inconsistencies, promises of Eldorado will take Nigeria out of the wood if the structural constitutional deformity of Nigeria is not fixed or changed. And I completely agree with him. Yet, as usual, all the political parties are afraid to discuss this for fear of incurring the wrath of our principalities. So, my advice to you, maintain your sanity. To maintain your sanity in 2023, forget all the noise, the political jingles, the promises by politicians, as they will always overpromise and underdeliver. Ask yourself the basic burning question. What are the indicators, indices, possibilities, and precedent on ground that point to the achievement of these plenty promises by the various political parties? This is against the backdrop of the reality of our 77 trillion debt burden that will be inherited by the next government. If you can answer that question for yourself and take your stand, Niger politics would happen to you in 2023. As sense will fall on you. Blessed are those who are not expectant, for they shall not be disappointed. I wish I could answer the question for you here and now, but I promise you, if you follow us on all our social media platforms shown on your screen and listen to our numerous previous episodes, you certainly will be able to answer the question for yourself. But take this home. In democracy, the office of the president is subservient to the office of the citizen only if you use your vote wisely and not allow Niger brand of politics to happen to you in 2023. This is my letter, and see you next week.
I don't know how to swim, but when they load me in the boat, we were like 155 people in one boat. So when we are going to Italy, we have run many hours. So on the way going, our boat now capsized because of the waves, and our boat is pumping boat. So when the waves throw in and they load us about 3 boats, 2 at the front, we are at the back. When the waves come in a big way and through, it capsized our boat. 65 people died in the same boat with me. About 30 girls and 35 boys died in the same boat. So when they are dying, they are sinking down. Some was catching my leg, some drawing my clothes or my bag, shouting, "Biggie, Biggie, Biggie, Biggie." That's how I remove the clothes. I stay hanging, holding the rope that I'm holding on top of the boat. That's how. So after everything, all of us about 55 people, well, 155 people, the people that remain on top of boats, maybe they are not more than 80 people again. So everybody was crying that we are dying, no rescue. From 4 o'clock in the morning, our boat capsized. We are on top of the water till the next 4 o'clock in the evening. On the afternoon time, a helicopter come on top of us to come down like this a little bit. All of us was crying, raising hand up. They now carried the newborn baby, one woman having over there, to raise it up, to raise the baby up in a way the helicopter will see the baby. So we are shouting for rescue, rescue. So all of us was crying. I said, God, is it today I will die on top of sea? All of us crying. So as we are crying, the helicopter, they wind up, but I believe that they will be seeing us through the screen. After everything, when the helicopter left, it's like they called out the police people in the area. The police people now coming with a small boat to come and rescue us. When they rescue us, they will carry us to the prison to go and lock us. And when they lock us there, the Nigerians that are in that very highland will come and bail us with like 500 dinar. 500 dinar. When they bail us like 500 dinar, like they were using in form of 50,000 Nigeria. They use it to bail us out. They will go and lock us somewhere. Our family in Nigeria, we can be calling our family in Nigeria to pay 150,000 in their account. Then we get like 100,000. They're using it to do business. In my life, even if they told me that Libya is like America again, I cannot try that country anymore in my life because I suffered a lot, honestly.
Thanks for joining us on News Now at this time.
Protest in Lagos.
Thank you for joining us again on the newsroom. The Lagos State Emergency Management Authority has said there's no need of school, one good woman, and the rampant illegal spectrum frequencies.
The bulls took over the wheels on the Niger stock market today as sellers eased.
Hello and welcome to the program. I am Deji Bademasi. As at September last year, Nigeria's total debt profile was put at 44 trillion naira, raising concerns among many that the debt may not be sustainable, something, of course, the federal government strongly says is not true. Well, the government is planning to even borrow more to fund the country's 2023 budget, and that will certainly drive up the debt profile to new levels. The aggregate expenditure of the budget, of course, is 21.83 trillion naira. So the government intends to finance the deficit mainly by new borrowings, which represents 4.78% of the estimated gross domestic product GDP, which is above the 3% threshold set by the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007. Joining us now to help us make better sense of the budget and all the figures that we've mentioned is Professor Kenny Fair, who is an economist. He joins us from Abuja. Prof, thank you very much for your time, and thanks for coming on the program. Help us make sense of this budget, the size of it. What do you make of it?
Well, if you're looking at size, Nigeria's budget, government budget, is quite small compared to the size of the country and the economy, because the revenue is only about just around 10 trillion, which is 5% of the GDP, and that's too small. I would, if you compare it to like South Africa, that is more than 3 times the size of our own budget, and then is only 1/4 of our population. So I think the size of the budget is driven by the level of government revenue. If you were to go for 50 trillion, 60 trillion, then it would be commensurate to compared to other countries. It is very small.
It's quite surprising that you say it's very small. No doubt at all that it's very small. But even with the size, that small size, we're still struggling to fund it.
Yeah, what you are struggling with is to raise the revenue. The revenue is just about 7% of the GDP, government revenue, and it should be the average in Africa is 18%. South Africa is 22%. So we are powering, 1/3 of our capacity. That is the driver. So assuming that we are doing 3 times, which will bring us to about 20% or say 19%, then you will have seen the size of the budget goes up to about 50 trillion or 45 trillion. So that's the main constraint. The size of the revenue is so small, and we can get more than 3 times of that revenue. Just look at the waste. Look at the holes that we have to plug. Look at how much of it, 16 trillion, that is given in as incentives and waivers of all sorts to even 5 biggest companies. So there's a lot that we could do to raise more revenue. And that's only leakage.
Okay, let's talk about the issue of this borrowing now. I mean, clearly the minister made it known that we're going to borrow. Projected revenue is just around 10 point something a billion. So we're looking at close to 11 to raise close to 11 trillion now to fund this budget. And the minister has said, look, that money will come from borrowing, that we're going to borrow, and substantial amount of that will be domestic borrowing. And the question is, what implication will that have for the Nigerian economy if since the government plans to borrow massively from the domestic market?
Well, the thing is that I think we're having some challenges on borrowing from the going to go to 24 trillion. We're still thinking about 40-year bond swap. So we're going to have to go for a bond and then at 9% to try and see if we can deal with that and put it out of the way. Yeah. But yes, the additional borrowing of over 10 trillion, well, will have to come. They prefer to now go for domestic market, but domestic market is much more expensive. Because I know that the treasury bill is going at about 14% or more, 14 to 15%. So it's expensive, but it's a short-term borrowing, which is just 1 year or so. But that's the option that the government is exercising at the moment.
And what implication would this have for, what we'll spend on debt service? Because you look at what is budgeted for debt service alone, it's far higher than what is, budgeted for capital projects, so to speak.
Yeah, it's going to be far more difficult times because at the moment, our debt service is 6.6 trillion. So by the time you borrow additional, those additional expected borrowing, because the deficit is about 10.7 trillion. So by the time you borrow that, now add the interest on it and the capital repayment, you see that that figure will be heading up to going to about 9 trillion. So it's going to be a very difficult time because whatever else is there, you could see some of the money that was the revised budget, that's the revised allocation of over 800 trillion. A bulk of it, 86%, 704 trillion went to capital, capital project, infrastructure, housing and works. So a lot more. In fact, even if you look at the current one for 2023, housing also had the highest, almost 398 trillion. So in together is 1.1 trillion. So you can actually see where the money is going. Because they want to ramp up infrastructure as much as they can, pay off as much as they can before they leave office, which is not a bad idea. But we have a lot of debt to deal with.
And do you think these debts are sustainable?
Well, the issue of sustainability, even if you look at the 77 trillion, which is what it has jumped up to now, is still about 35% of our GDP. You could still argue your way through because World Bank says, well, we can go up to 55%. Best practice says 40%. So they can still argue that we haven't got to even to 40%. But it's the revenue side that is the crux of the matter. The government has, the Minister of Finance have an aggressive revenue mobilization initiative hoping to push the 7% envelope to 15%. If we get to 15%, which is double, yeah, of course, that can quietly take care of the outgoing, the debt service. But we need to get that money. We need to get it.
From what you have seen, do you think the revenue projections are achievable?
The revenue projections, I'm not very sure, to be honest, because I looked at the figures of as at November last year. We didn't do quite well on the revenue collection, but by December, when the figures return for December, you might see an improvement. But I think we underperformed substantially on the revenue last year, quite unexpectedly. But how it's going to play out this year, I'm not quite sure, because we are still spending, and a lot of that spend, you could see the revised appropriation by the Assembly. They raised the benchmark from $70 to 75, pushing out extra 1.3 trillion, and then see where the money went. You saw the National Population Commission getting a lot of it. You've seen the National INEC getting some of it, and then you come down to infrastructure and all those health and all that, the defense. So the needs are there, and those needs are what are pushing if we have a better benchmark, if we attain more efficiency in our benchmark, for example, in the production volume, which is 1.69, if we're able to ramp up production to that level, then we will be talking. But I doubt very much if we can hit that, because throughout last year, we were largely under 1 million barrels a day. But I know now we are well over 1 million, 1.2, heading to 1.3. So let us hope that we will escape overcome that. There was in the past, there were times in the past we did 2.1 million barrels a day, even 2 million. So why is it becoming difficult for us to get to those levels? Your guess is as good as mine.
And because you talked about the benchmarks, of course, crude oil price pegged at $75 per barrel, and you did talk about the production benchmark of 1.69, and inflation. The projection is 17.16, and the projected economic growth 3.75.
I'm not sure.
You think those are not overly optimistic?
I'm not sure about inflation. To be honest, I'm not sure about the inflation figure, because it's difficult to where we are currently around 22%. And it will still rise. The December result will still rise. So I doubt how we could bring down 5% on inflation in the whole